Blake Lively, America Ferrera, Alexis Bledel, and Amber Tamblyn once captivated audiences in The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, a coming-of-age story that not only became a cult classic, but also marked Blake Lively's breakout role as Bridget. Fans and even her co-stars have often praised her for bringing an infectious energy to the character, a mix of strength, vulnerability, and raw emotion that resonated deeply with audiences. Many still say Bridget's storyline felt the most relatable, reflecting the struggles and self-discovery that come with growing up. Fast forward to now, and it seems Blake Lively's name is making waves again, but not for her acting. In the middle of Hollywood nostalgia and pop culture chatter, Taylor Swift's new album, Life of a Showgirl, has set social media ablaze. The album, released to massive success, has divided the fandom. While some Swifties are absolutely obsessed, others feel it's a recycled mix of her previous work. Still, it's undeniably catchy, a celebration of love and fame that reflects Taylor's current chapter. But what's stealing the spotlight isn't just the music, it's the speculation. Among the tracks is one titled Cancelled, which some fans believe takes aim at none other than Blake Lively. Now, before jumping to conclusions, it's important to note that Life of a Showgirl was recorded long before the rumored fallout between Taylor and Blake, reportedly during the spring and summer of 2024. At that time, the two were still very much friends. Their last public appearance together was in October 2024, when Blake and Ryan Reynolds were spotted having dinner with Taylor and Travis Kelce, who was still her fiancé at the time. After that, the friendship seemed to fade from the public eye, especially once the lawsuit drama and dragon text leaks began circulating online, dragging Taylor's name into legal controversy she had nothing to do with. Since then, fans have speculated endlessly about whether the two A-listers are still on good terms. Some believe the friendship quietly ended, while others insist they've reconciled behind the scenes. Recently, the rumor mill reignited after TMZ published a story claiming that Taylor and Blake might have mended fences, a theory fueled by a resurfaced New Heights podcast episode hosted by Travis and Jason Kelce. The episode, which discussed the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, appeared to be new but was actually recorded in October 2024, the same week Taylor and Blake were last seen together. In the podcast, both Kelce brothers praised Blake's performance in the film, calling her amazing and the best part of the movie. When this older episode was re-uploaded recently as part of their now public bonus content, fans went into a frenzy, interpreting it as a subtle sign that Taylor and Blake might have reconciled. However, this theory seems shaky when you realize the episode predates the fallout entirely, meaning the compliments came from a time when everything was still fine between them. Adding even more fuel to the gossip fire, fans noticed that Taylor was recently seen wearing a bracelet identical to one Blake wore at the premiere of It Ends With Us. Swifties immediately began speculating that this was a peace offering or a symbol of rekindled friendship. But again, that bracelet might have simply been part of Taylor's wardrobe months ago, when the two were still close. After all, Taylor herself said that the visuals and accessories used for Life of a Showgirl were planned and produced more than a year in advance. Despite tabloids like the Daily Mail pushing a narrative that the two women have forgiven each other, it's hard to say what's really going on behind the scenes. Blake and Taylor's friendship was once one of Hollywood's most beloved, built on mutual respect, creativity, and family closeness. Yet after the lawsuit drama that dragged Taylor into headlines she never asked for, many fans feel it would be difficult to fully repair that trust. As one commentator put it, if Blake truly used Taylor's name for clout during the legal chaos, it's not something that can be easily forgiven. The claim that Blake used Taylor's friendship to shield herself from backlash during the court proceedings has sparked heated debate online. Many Swifties think Taylor is wisely keeping her distance, refusing to publicly take sides. Even though Taylor has a reputation for supporting her friends, from Keisha to Selena Gomez, she has remained silent on this one. And that silence speaks volumes. If Taylor believed in Blake's innocence or felt she was being unfairly targeted, fans argue she would have voiced support by now. The fact that she hasn't suggests that something deeper might have fractured their bond. Still, some believe Taylor's decision to stay quiet reflects her desire to stay out of legal drama and keep her personal life separate from public narratives. With her new album dominating charts worldwide, the last thing she needs is to be pulled back into the controversy surrounding Blake's court battles. Meanwhile, as this emotional and public saga unfolds, the judge presiding over Blake Lively's ongoing case has made a few notable rulings. Instead of dismissing key motions, like the motion for judgment on the pleadings and the motion for summary judgment, the judge decided to keep both on schedule. He ruled that Blake's team must respond to both motions simultaneously by November 19th, keeping the docket consistent with his court calendar. This may sound procedural, but it's a critical step that will determine what parts of Blake's legal claims move forward, and which could be thrown out. Essentially, the court isn't ready to let go of the case, it's just structuring it to ensure both sides get a fair review. That means the upcoming weeks could reveal explosive new filings, rebuttals, and potentially even more evidence related to how certain data was accessed and shared during the earlier discovery phase. So where does this leave Blake and Taylor? In short, it's complicated. On one hand, nostalgia and past friendship linger. On the other, legal storms, public scrutiny, and trust issues make reconciliation difficult. Fans may want to believe in a fairy tale ending, but Hollywood friendships often blur the line between loyalty and strategy. For now, both stars seem to be moving in different directions. Taylor focused on her music and global influence, Blake navigating legal complexities and public perception. Until the two are seen together again, everything remains speculation. And in the court of public opinion, silence often says more than any statement ever could. In the end, one thing's clear. No matter how glamorous the world of fame appears, behind the red carpets and photo ops lie real relationships, real tension, and real consequences. Whether this latest chapter marks the end or rebirth of Blake and Taylor's friendship, it reminds us just how quickly Hollywood alliances can shift, and how the truth is often messier than the headlines suggest. He denied Blake Lively's request for more time, stating she didn't have proper grounds for an extension. However, he allowed her to respond to both motions simultaneously, explaining that he would review and rule on them at the same time. This move essentially gives him two different ways to dismiss Blake's case. Observers noted subtle hints from the judge suggesting that some of her California claims might be thrown out. He even mentioned wanting to prepare for what's left in this case after ruling, implying certain parts may not survive. If he had no intention of dismissing anything, he likely wouldn't have made such comments. It's becoming increasingly clear that some of Blake's claims are in serious jeopardy, and the judge's goal is to keep the case on schedule with no unnecessary delays. Federal civil cases generally hold less priority than criminal ones, as criminal trials are constitutionally protected by the right to a speedy trial. Judges can't afford to let civil matters disrupt their criminal case schedules, so they're typically stricter with deadlines in civil proceedings. Some fans interpreted the judge's actions as favoring Blake, but the reality seems quite the opposite. In truth, she now faces immense pressure, needing to handle and respond to two major dispositive motions at once, one concerning the pleadings and the other concerning the factual evidence. These two areas might even contradict each other, putting her legal team in a tough spot. Ultimately, the judge now has two clear pathways to potentially end her claims altogether. Adding to Blake's troubles, she's been accused of trying to conceal evidence in this case. A recent change in federal court procedures adds an interesting twist. Sealed documents are no longer uploaded directly to public dockets. Instead, the court keeps them internally, replacing them online with placeholders that simply mark their existence. The idea is to prevent accidental leaks or misfilings. However, this doesn't mean the information will stay hidden forever. If any of those documents are later referenced in other filings, they could become public. So what exactly has Blake been trying so hard to hide? Two major pieces of evidence were at the center of her efforts to keep things under wraps. One is the declaration from a person who accused Justin Baldoni of verbal abuse and creating an uncomfortable work environment. According to the judge's order, this declaration will now be made public. Blake had argued that the declarant's privacy should outweigh any public interest and that revealing their identity could subject them to online harassment. But Wayfarer, Baldoni's team, pushed back, saying that because Blake selectively quoted from audio recordings, the full context should be released to ensure accuracy and fairness. The judge agreed with Wayfarer. He explained that when a document is tied to a significant motion, especially one requesting sanctions, fees, or damages, there's a strong presumption of public access. In this case, Blake's motion sought not only fees but also punitive and treble damages. The judge ruled that her privacy concerns were not enough to outweigh the public's right to transparency. He further clarified that the declarant's identity doesn't fall into the categories typically protected as private, such as medical information or details involving minors. Moreover, since the declarant voluntarily submitted their statement accusing others in the case, the court found no valid reason to keep their identity hidden. Interestingly, Wayfarer had offered a compromise, suggesting that they could redact the declarant's name. But the judge refused, reasoning that the audio recordings themselves would make it obvious who the speaker was, making redaction meaningless. He ordered the full unsealing of the documents and recordings. This ruling has huge implications. It prevents Blake from cherry-picking or misrepresenting parts of the conversation to support her narrative. Once the complete recordings are out, the public will have the full context, and the story may not appear nearly as damning toward Baldoni as Blake had portrayed. Her tendency to dramatize situations or present selectively edited material could backfire badly here. The unsealed evidence may reveal that the reality behind her claims is far less severe than she made it seem, and that could severely weaken her credibility moving forward. Blake Lively's situation just keeps getting messier, and the court isn't buying her attempts to keep things hidden. In a surprising twist, the judge announced that he'll be unsealing portions of a deposition since no one came forward to request that it remain confidential. However, certain sensitive medical details related to Jed Wallace will stay sealed for privacy reasons. But here's where things really get interesting, and honestly, a bit ironic. Remember how Blake fought to keep her California Civil Rights Division, CRD, complaint sealed? Well, that's coming back to bite her. According to the latest order, Wayfarer's motion from August 12th sought to keep two exhibits sealed. Exhibit 1 being an agreement between Blake Lively's company, Blake Hill Inc., and the It Ends With Us movie, which apparently contained confidential and sensitive information. Exhibit 2 was the CRD complaint and right to sue letter filed by Blake herself. However, the judge noted that Wayfarer's filing didn't actually explain in detail why these materials should be hidden from public view. It was only sealed because Blake originally filed it that way. The judge made it clear that since these documents were submitted as part of a dispositive motion, a major motion that could decide the case, there's a strong presumption of public access. In simple terms, the public has the right to see them unless there's a truly compelling reason not to. He gave both Blake and Wayfarer until October 8th to justify their request for confidentiality. If they can't provide a valid legal reason, those materials will have to be unsealed. The court's tone made it clear, "Blake, you've already talked about this publicly. Why should this be private?" In other words, Blake's repeated efforts to hide evidence and control the narrative aren't working anymore. Her attempt to keep the declarant's identity secret, the person who accused Justin Baldoni of verbal abuse, has been officially denied. The same goes for her selective use of the audio clip. The court ruled that she can't just quote the parts that make Baldoni look bad while hiding the rest. The full recording and declaration will be made public soon, even though the process might take time since unsealed documents now have to be accessed directly through the court rather than the online docket. Once those files are available, we'll finally learn who this declarant was and what the entire audio conversation actually revealed. And based on how things have gone so far, there's a strong chance that the full context will tell a very different story than what Blake has been pushing. Her critics believe that once the unedited version is released, it will become clear that the remarks weren't made in the harsh or abusive tone she's claimed, and that her team may have twisted the context to suit their argument. If there's one pattern people have noticed with Blake's legal tactics, it's how she and her attorneys often misconstrue or exaggerate information to make her case appear stronger. While that's a common legal strategy, it often backfires when the truth comes out, especially if the selective presentation makes it look like she was being misleading. It's reminiscent of the time she accused someone of being part of a smear campaign paid by Baldoni without any actual proof. It's these overreaches that have made many observers skeptical of her credibility in court. So, at this point, Blake's attempt to keep damaging evidence under wraps has officially failed. The judge's ruling ensures that both the declaration and audio recording will see the light of day. And once they do, public perception could shift dramatically. Whether the evidence exonerates Baldoni or not, one thing is clear. Blake won't be able to cherry-pick facts anymore. For now, we'll have to wait and see how the unsealing process unfolds. Once the documents are made available, analysts and fans alike will dig into the details. And if the broader context contradicts Blake's claims, this could mark a turning point in the case. As for Taylor Swift's rumored connection to this saga, opinions remain mixed. Some still wonder whether her new music subtly references her strained friendship with Blake. But most agree that Taylor's focus right now is on happiness, love, and her relationship with Travis Kelce. Still, If she ever reconciles publicly with Blake after everything that's come out, even her most loyal fans admit they'd give that decision a serious side-eye. In the end, the key takeaway is simple. Blake Lively's attempt to hide evidence was denied, her credibility is on thin ice, and the truth, and whatever it is, will soon be out. This court order could expose a whole new layer of the controversy, and when those unsealed documents finally drop, we'll have a much clearer picture of who's been telling the truth all along.